Okay, folks, today I'm going to show you how to make a slip. Here's one that I previously made for a side buster. It slips right in there. And I'm going to show you how to make something similar, something a little more basic. And then soon enough on my channel I'll show you how I carve in a case side buster on the slip. This one was machine sewn. I have an upholsterer's machine, so I sew most of my leathers now. But I'm going to do this with the old-fashioned saddle stitch for y'all, the basic leather sewing stitch, which is the strongest stitch there is. Now, before we get started, to make one, generally this size, you're going to need some leather. I got 2 pieces of scrap here. This one's what they would call an oak tan. It's a little darker, and this one's a veg tan. Okay, it's just a process of tanning the hides and the leather to make the leather. And I will leave you some links on how to order them. Now, first of all, we got to find out what our size is, the common size on the slip. And then this one here is sandwiched on the bottom, which is basically the easiest one to make. So I'm going to show you how I make this one here now. So what you'll do is get you a nice decent ruler here where you can measure and see what the length of it is. So this is 4 1/4, so I want to go 8 1/2 because I'm sandwiching it, right? So I want an 8 1/2 by 2 inches wide. That's the common size of the small pocket knife slips. 8 1/2 by 2 inches wide. So now that I know that, it doesn't appear that I have enough leather. So I'm going to have to stitch this one on 3 sides instead of 2, which is no big deal. These are scraps, like I said, so this is just a tutorial. Okay, the tools you'll need to make these. You're going to need a cutting knife. This one here is a leather crafter's cutting knife. I made the sheath for it, and I actually made this knife here at Kodiak Edge. So it's razor sharp all the way around. It's for cutting my leather, and I'll show you here in the steps doing this process. If you're a beginner, you don't need this knife. You can just go to Ace Hardware or Menards and get you a local hardware store and get you a utility knife. That's all you really need to cut the leather. And for pounding your designs, you're going to need your tools, different carving tools. As you can see here, I got an array of them. And you need a good shillelagh for, for pounding the leather. Just kidding. But you are going to need some sort of mallet, and usually you want to use a plastic edged mallet. You can see all the ding marks on this one, and it keeps these edges from rolling over. You don't want to use a peening hammer or a metal hammer on these. This is like a pot metal, it's a casted metal. They're poured in a cast and made, but each one's got their own specific design here, as you can see on this one. But you're going to need a mallet for hitting them. This rack here I got for just doing what I'm going to work on, what design I want to do. I put them in this. I take them out of my other racks here. You can see I got this whole rack here. And if you're a beginner, you're not going to have all these tools. But you can get any of these basic tools, including a carving knife. You're going to need some kind of carving knife. I got several here. I don't have a ceramic one. I never did get one, but a lot of guys swear by them, and I don't really care. I just use what I learned on, right? And I've had these for 15, 20 years. A couple of them, I think a couple of them are only a few years old. I think this one's a few years old. I'm going to make sure these edges are nice and sharp when you're cutting the leather, and I'll show you how you cut it. It's actually called tracing and carving. Okay? So I got several of them. You only need one. You can get any of these tools at Hobby Lobby. Get the basic carver, get a basic carving set, a set of like 3 or 4 tools. I get all my supplies at 2 places, and I'll leave links to both of them for you. Tandy leather is my biggest source. We have a Tandy leather in suburban Chicago. I go and get a lot of my stuff. It's like 40 minutes from my house. You need a good light, and you need a marble, something flat. This is, you know, this is a piece of marble from a scrap cut off from a marble shop that installs countertops. Don't use glass, it'll break. Marble or slate or corian, something dense and flat. It's got to be nice and flat, okay? So that said, you need a good light, something you can reposition when you're carving because you want to see what you're doing really. And we'll get with it. So the first thing you got to do is get you some water because you're going to be carving this leather. And you want to wet it, but before we do that, we got to figure out what we're going to do here. Okay, I can get 2 out of this one here. So I know I have a 90-degree edge here, right? So I'm going to go my 4 1/4 inches. Nope, that's this way. I already have that. It's like 4 1/8 on this one. So what's an 1/8 inch, right? Okay. So I'm going to do my 2 inches wide. I'll make a mark 2 inches. This is going to be a sandwich sheet. It's not a pancake. This one is actually considered a pancake because you fold it over. Or a fold over. I'll make my marks top and bottom 2 inches. Okay. And then I'll cut it. I use my leather knife. Okay, a couple other tools here I forgot to mention. You need something to scribe with. In this case, I'm using a leather stitching punch. Okay, scribe out my patterns or whatever I'm going to do. You're either going to need a whole, half round. You want to get this curve drawn out in the sheath, and or a compass. So I'll just stick with this, the basics for y'all. You can buy these at Hobby Lobby too. Okay. So now I'm going to cut this out. And I got a piece of Kydex here that works good for doing this. I'm going to hold down firmly on this when you cut it so it doesn't move. One piece. I have another cutting mat somewhere that I actually is made for this. Okay, I'll show you with the basic tool. Sometimes the basic tools are the easiest. Got one left over there. Alright. I'll probably use this to show you different things for carving. Now I got that. Alright. I'm going to want to take the front one of these. First of all, I want to check. Make sure this is square. And I can see my lines there. That one looks pretty good. And I'll sandwich them together and trim off what I need to make them the same. So that's not really a concern because it's going to get trimmed anyways after it's sewn. So this purpose, I'm going to show you how to carve. All right, we're good to go on that. Now before I do that, I need to get some tape. What you'll do is you'll take some tape. You don't want this leather, when you start carving this leather and it's wet, it's going to expand. So you will end up with this leather, get one piece will be wider than the other. So to remedy that, you can use the clear packing tape, and I ran out of it, but most guys just use masking tape. Put the masking tape on it. Now for double assurance, you don't have to use this. You can use your mallet, but I like to just roll it a little tighter than it is by hand. Okay, we did that piece. We'll do this piece. Masking tape on it. And that's ready to carve. But before we can carve now, we got to wet the surface. And you're wondering, well, how much do you wet it and how long does it stay wet? Get the sheep's wool pad here. You can soak the leather right in the water if you want. Got a little thing of water here. I mean, you can soak it in there, but you gotta let it dry. And you gotta let it dry till where it almost looks like it did when you started. You'll see the change in color here. All right. I'm gonna probably dye this black when I'm done, so, or you could just oil it. I'll show you the whole process of making this. I might have a part 2, because this is gonna be long. Part 2 of finishing this, stitching it and dyeing it, finishing the edges. Okay, that looks sufficient to me, where it's just wet looking on the surface, as you can see. Then I'll let it set. All right. Normally let it set for about 10-15 minutes. You'll see it starting to turn dry. If you go carving on it when it's wet like this, it'll be too mushy and you'll spread the leather around too much. There's actually videos on doing this, on, you know, how to wet your leather on YouTube. You can do a search on that. It'll get more in depth on it for you. You can see here it's starting to turn dry. We zoom in here a little bit. Okay. Starting to dry in the corner there a little bit. So I'll let that dry and I'll be back. They got different tools. These are what you would call a border tool, and I'll show you how that works. Every different design. I mean, you got acorns and leaves and flowers, and here I got a maple leaf. I got a left and a right. Even got a butterfly. So okay. You're gonna need a compass, something to scribe with. Okay, so what we're gonna do, just so you know, I'll get a ruler. You want to set up your borders. The first line we're going to scribe with this would be the stitch line where we're going to stitch it, and that's usually 3/16 of an inch away from the edge. So as you can see here, I got this from the 9, I got it set at 3/16, 9 3/16. Okay, this is the best looking piece. So you're going to find out what you want to do towards doing the front. And just basic, I got punches for doing this, but I'll show you how it's done first. The front of it, we want, you know, you could do double. Makes it easier to pull the knife out, and I think I'll do that. But again, just take your template that I showed you needed, if you have one. Put that on here to the size that you want. The bigger the circle, the more arc. See which one looks the best. I think that one looks good right there. Take your scribe tool that I told you about. Eyeball it, make sure it's pretty centered the way you want it. Okay. There we go. I'll do both pieces. Some people don't. You can leave the back and maybe punch a hole in the corner, or you go a little lesser of an arc and move it over to the corner and punch your holes here for a lanyard. It's up to you. There's myriads of ways of making these things. So again, I had this here, I believe. I'll do the same thing on this one. I'll just give me a little scribe where the top's there. So they're the same. You can see through the stencil, so you know how much you got on the right and how much you got on the left. I just got a tiny bit. There we go. Up a little bit right there is about right. Okay. I got that. Usually I just punch it out. I got a big punch that does it, but y'all are beginners, so I'll just show you with the utility. Follow your scribe. Fairly simple. You can see this, by the time I get done doing this and laying it out, this leather's nice and dry. I mean, it's almost looking like it was when I started. And that's really when you want to start carving on it. Not when it's real wet, too spongy, the knife drifts, you get not too clean of a carving. Even when you're using stamps, these are leather punch stamps, you know, decorative stamps. They're actually called carving tools. And that's what you're doing, is carving in the terms of leatherwork. Alright, I got these both the same here. I kind of don't like that, so I'll take a little more off here. I'll give it a 1/4 inch on the top, so my stitching comes up to the top there. You know, there's different size pocket knives. Let's say this one's for a smaller knife than a side buster. And even if it was, you still put a side buster in here, it's just the top will be right where you want it, you know what I mean? It's just to protect the knives from whatever's in your pockets, you know. If you want to make it with coming down deep into it, like this one here, the side buster goes in and it's just there. It's your choice how you want to do these. I'm just giving you a quick guide here. That looks a little high right there. Make these a little more even. That looks good right there. So these are identical now. Okay, the first thing I got to do before I start carving in this leather, you have to wet it. And here I got a bucket of water here. You know, sheeps. I use these in the shop for everything. If you're doing leather work, these are a must, and I'll tell you why in other videos. But I'll get it a little wet. This one will be my backside. Okay. I'll wet this one in a second. For now, I'm going to take my groove tool here. This is a groove tool. You can get it at Hobby Lobby or at Tandy Leather, where I get most of my materials and tools. The front side, before I wet it, I want to put a groove in it for my stitch line. Okay, that's the most important thing, because when you stitch this up, and I'll show you that in the next video. I don't want these videos to be too long, so today is just carving, okay, and basics of carving tools and getting familiar with everything. So I'll come about 3/16 in from the very top down, and it's cutting a groove in the leather. And the reason behind that is you want your stitches to be inside of it so they don't wear down from being in your pocket. Okay. So I'll go all three sides except for the open side. I'll do a few passes and get nice and deep. Probably a third of the way through the leather, depending on how thick your leather is. It don't have to be that deep. It's only like a 64th in there, or give or take a 16th. But by doing this several times, you get a knack for how deep it needs to be. Like I said, the trick is get the stitching in there so it don't. Okay, now it's time to wet it. This is the front. You could put a stitching groove on the back side too. I generally don't. I mean, these things, you get sick of them after a while and want to make a new one anyways, or you'll end up with 100 of them by the time you're done collecting knives. Looking good. This has got to be done before it's wet, or you got to let it dry and do it, but okay. And I'm ready to go. That's the back side. I'll put my logo on it here. I got this logo, Backwoods Leather. That's my logo. You can look online, there's all kinds of people, even with Facebook pages, that make these. This is a chunk of brass with my logo designed on it, and it's recessed so it makes perfect. It's a stamp. It stamps my logo right on the back. See how I got the leather a little dirty? That don't matter. I'm going to do it a dark color anyways. But, you know, being for training purposes, it's fine. I'll probably put it toward the bottom here. But you want this leather, when you wet it, you want it to almost dry like that. But for the stamp, I like to get a little bit deeper. So while I'm waiting, I'll do this one now. You wet it till you see the water standing a little bit on the leather. Maybe one more swipe. Right there. Okay. I'll let that dry. Usually 5-10 minutes. It'll start turning like you see here. That's when you want to start carving on the leather. There's videos also to see how to do that perfectly if you're worried about it. Because if you get it too wet when you're carving, you're going to squish the water out and it's going to be too dark of a carving and whatnot. So I'll get something to press this in. I got a little punch press here that I use. Doesn't take much. Make sure it's centered where you want it. You don't want the stitching going through it. center it under the, I'll actually put it on here, then center it. Alright, then I'll move this over to it. Right about there. Oh, pardon me. Put a little weight into it. You can use a vise if you don't have one of these. Just make sure this is centered on the leather pretty good. Check it out, see where you're at. That looks pretty good. That's my logo. Backwoods leather established in 2000. Handcrafted by Gordon J. Holman. Okay. By the way, them stamps are about 75 bucks, so you gotta be making money with leather to buy something like that. Okay, now that's done. This is almost dry. And this is the front, so just for shits and giggles, I'll get a glove on and show you. Okay, now I got a glove on, see? I won't get no oils or dirt from the palm of my hand onto the leather. And that's the right way of doing it. Make sure your table's clean. I wiped it off with acetone before I even started. Okay, folks. Alright, my battery died on me, so I did this off camera. With the carve knife, third of the way through the leather, the swivels, your finger rests on there. You essentially go around it and carve it a third of the way through the leather, all the way around. I went all the way around, and that's going to give me my three-dimensional look after I stamp it with this edge tool, it's called. So you get your mallet here, and you got a bevel that goes down here to essentially like a point. You put that in that cut that you created, and you just start stamping it. This takes some practice, but you do enough of this, you'll get it. And I put gloves on so I don't get no oil or dirt onto the leather. You want everything clean when you're working on this, like I said. And small pieces like this will want to move on you, so do the best you can. Try to stay on the inside of that cut line you made. It's had plenty of drying time, the leather. It gets to a certain point where it looks like it's, you can move along one section at a time like this. As you get better, you can start moving like this. I've been doing this for about 15 years, so I've done everything from horse saddles to gun holsters, women's purses. I'll get more. Now you'll see here that I got it. It's more three-dimensional now. So you essentially, with this edge tool, that bevel pushes that leather down as you go. Now I'll just touch it up a little bit. You don't have to go crazy with this because we're going to go over the top of this with what they call a border tool after we put our main design on the leather. I just kind of lightly skim around it and see if it's, you see how it's darker around there now? That's what you want. You don't want it too dark, but you want it dark enough. And gives you that three-dimensional look. Hit any spots you might have missed. That looks good. Okay. So now we're going to lay out for a basket weave. It's very popular on a lot of belts. This right here is what we're going to do. This is called a basket weave. There's different size basket weaves. I got several of them here. You just decide what you want. In this case, we got one with a star, and I think I'm going to do that. This one here makes that weave there. You know, there's different types. For instance, you can buy this one here. You get these all tandy leather. And that's just, you'll see how I do it. Just like that, see? And it creates a basket weave. This is the one we're going to use, I believe. Let's go with the American Star. I think that'll look nice. But what I'm going to do with it when I do it, instead of going like this, I'm going to go, yeah, we'll go on an angle, a slight angle. Nah. You know what, I'll save this for a different video. I'll just do a basic. I want a smaller basket weave since this is a smaller piece of leather I'm carving, so I'll get one of my smaller basket weave tools here. That looks about the right size. They come in different sizes, like I said. Okay, now what I got to do for this is my scribe tool, essentially a leather punch for stitching leather. I'll come in here and I'll go from corner to corner on the diagonal. You can do it anywhere you want, but it looks best when you do it from geometrically from corner to corner, I think, in my experience. Just lightly scribe this, because you don't want to see it. You're only doing one line, and that's the line you're going to use. I can barely see it there. But I can see it. And I got to follow that line with the stamp tool. So what I'll do is I'll start in one corner here. And put the 2 points on each side of that. On that line I just got. Okay, give it a good whack. Now I'll come and I'll be on the opposite side of the line. And you want these, there's 4 points here on this, on the end of it. Each one of them points gets stuck in the point where it comes to an end on your layout line. And you'll do this all the way down on that layout line. This makes it geometrically right. These angled basket weaves are a little tougher. See, now the point again on the end point of this last one I did. You can get this in a basic kit too at Hobby Lobby. Sometimes you gotta give it another whack. Sometimes you gotta wet the leather a little more so it imprints better. Gets too dry on you, it doesn't want to stamp too well to leave a good impression for you. See that? It's starting now. You can wet it as you go if it dries up fast on you. Okay, now I'm going to continue up this line, scribe line that I made. Corner point to corner point on the last one. After I do this on the line all the way to the opposite side, Then it's just a matter of lining the 2 points up on the tool without the line. You don't need the line anymore. This was just to line them up and get them straight all the way across the piece of leather. So keep spinning the leather. You're going to go on the opposite sides of the line to create that weave. This is the last one. It's okay if you don't come all the way to your border, or even if you touch it. So we're going to put a border tool stamp around it when we're done. This is actually probably a little bit. Now you got the end of this one and the end of that one. You'll take the ends of this and put it in there. See that? And you'll do it to each one. Jump up here if you want, do it again up here. See that? Start to look like a basket weave. This one here doesn't have nothing to meet on this side, so I'll just eyeball it where I think it looks appropriately good. Whack it. Again, point to point, point to point. Doesn't take long to do this. I've been done already for an instruction. Now you're like, well, what do I do here? Well, you want that middle part to be over here. So what I'll do is I'll put this point in there. I don't want to stamp past the 3-dimensional. So I'll hit this on an angle to where I'm only stamping this half of the. Look at it. See? I got it there. The border tool, when I show you, is going to cover all that. Oop. Jumped on me. Mama said there'd be days like this. There you go. Okay, turn it around to the other side. Point to point, point to point. It takes a little bit of practice. I mean, you do this for an hour, you'll get it. See, I peek more, I lean the tool more that way because I didn't want to go off. And I didn't actually get it. There we go. That's there. I kind of go this way here. Kind of come down a little too far. You won't really notice it. I will. You won't. It'll look like a basket weave when we're done. I'll go a little faster here. Point to point. I held in on an angle here so I didn't get on past the border. It doesn't matter if you don't see the impression here, because like I said, the edge tool, the border tool that we use will hide all of it. You won't see it anymore. And if you pass, like I said, you want to lift the tool up and only stamp a third or a half or whatever you need to keep it from stamping past your border. Sometimes you don't stamp good enough and you go back. Couple more. This is a floater. I don't have a point there to land on, so I just eyeball the tool and make sure it looks good. That's it, actually. There we go. There's your basket weave. You see, if you went this way, or if you turn the tool from there to here, I mean, you can get a basket weave there, but it's cooler when you get more of it going across, more moving, you know what I mean? If you do it this way, you're only going to get a few in a row. This way you got several in a row, and I dropped it on the ground. And it's probably dirty now. But yeah, now we got one more thing. I'll put one more here, I believe. That'll be it. Again, I'm lifting the tool point to point. There, I just did half of the stamp, so we're gonna go into the board, past the border. Look it over. You could put some here, but you know the border's gonna pretty much get that anyways. See? Okay. Last but least, this video is a completion. This is the border tool, see here. You gotta mirror the border tools. And they're usually this half moon shape with the stars and the stripes. And I've got a whole palette over here in different sizes. And they can be used for any type of carvings, ornamental. But these are all border tools for different size projects. Okay. Now to do this, I'll start on the smallest side here. You're going to take the 2 points on this, like remember you was doing the 2 points on that, they would meet up with each other. Well, these 2 points on this half moon here, that's what's going to sit on your border line. You'll see what I mean here. And that's it. The other corner. What this little more. Don't be afraid to wet it. It feels a little dry as you're going. Wet it. And just past that line. I don't want to come up flush to it because the tool will sink in and it'll push the border out. Okay, and I got my tape on there so it ain't gonna stretch. That's the purpose of that tape. Now I know from experience on this, I can get 4 of these on here, or 5. You'll see where that lands, you'll see where this lands, and see what you got left over there. So I want to be tight on this. And that's what I'm doing, back and forth. And the last one already perfect. Well, I got a little too close on that side, but that looks pretty good. I'll do that all the way around. I'll start it on this little side here first. That, you know what I mean? Uniform. On the sides. A little too far out, it don't matter. Yeah, I got a little bit of a gap there. I should have done 2 here and then split the difference. Just to show you, I can start here now, a little further away to match the other side almost. And I really didn't, but I know it. I'll just continue this across. I was rushing it, see. It doesn't really matter if these are in the same spot. That across from one another, people don't really see that. As long as they look good along their border. like here, you want to see if you pull down, make a little indent and see where you're gonna be left over. And that's the leftover. You'll, instead of starting next to the other one, you'll move it over slightly to get your clearance. Too bad. Same amount in between. There it is. That's the border. With the border to it. Okay. So that's it. That's how you do a basket weave with a border. Here's my groove for stitching this together, and I'll take my punches here and I'll punch the holes down in that groove for stitching it together, and that'll be the next video for you. This one's long enough, and I'll try to make them shorter. These two halves here, I'll take the tape off now, but I'll do that off camera. And then these will get stitched together. Glue, glue, and glue. This will be open, of course. Then I'll hand stitch that, and I'll show you how I edge it and finish the edges and stain it, and that'll be in the next video. So if you haven't subscribed to that, please do so. Ring the bell if you want to know when the video is coming up. It might be a day or so, but I'll have it up next year, this week. I'll try to get it up before Christmas. So this concludes the video, folks. I appreciate you taking your time to watch this long video, and I will have a second video on this and how to complete it, hand sew it together, and get it stained. Until next time, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.